Where the preaching is clear, concise, convicting, and quality.
All right, now this week, the question we're going to be addressing on our program is the question, why do we pray? Now, I get asked this 10 or 20, sometimes 100,000 times a week. Why do we have to pray? Why do we do that? What's the point? But let me just start by saying, a question like that, it's like asking, why do birds sing? Or why do firemen slide down those shiny poles? They slide down those poles because in any other context, pole sliding would be ridiculous. Even if I see a man who's not dressed like a fireman sliding down a fireman pole, probably a fireman. Same thing is true with prayer. If you see a person on the street just talking to themselves, what do you think? You think drug addict, right? That's what I think. If I walked up to that person and said, son, I'd like to take you to a rehabilitation clinic for your drug addiction. If that person then looked up at me and said, sir, I am not addicted to drugs, I was praying. Well, now, wouldn't that change everything? It's one of those things with prayer. We pray because in any other context, talking to yourself would look stupid. If you're a person who has faith, you can talk to yourself all you want, and people will accept that. One of the other reasons we pray is to send off a spiritual signal to other people. Think about it. If you're in a restaurant and you're looking around and you're trying to figure out, where are my brothers and sisters in this room? And by brothers and sisters, I don't mean people who were born by the same mom as you. Spiritual brothers and sisters. And it's hard to tell. Now we got Christians who wear the same kind of skanky clothes that the pagans do. But then, before they start to eat, you'll see them. And you see them bow their heads to pray immediately. Or at least I do. I know. I got a brother over here with his children. I got a sister there. I got a brother, which is very important, particularly in the day and age we live in today, where at any point, I think a pagan versus Christian battle could erupt. You want to know who's on your side should violence erupt. I think it's also good to say that we pray, not because we need to let God know what's on our heart, but we pray sometimes to help him remember that we really want him to do what we're telling him to do. I have children, they're grown now, but when they were young, I took two strategies with my children. They'd say, we want this or we want that. Two things I do. The first one is sometimes I pretend like I couldn't hear them. And they'd say, Dad, did you hear us say we wanted those toothpicks with cellophane? And I'd say, huh, like that, and just pretend like I couldn't hear them because I wanted them to leave me alone. And then the other thing I did sometimes is I pretend like I didn't understand them. So they'd say, we want a whole pack of tennis balls. And I'd look at them and I'd say, I'm sorry, did you say that you're ready to go to bed now? And they hate that, because they'd be like, no, we did not say we want to go to bed. And I'd say, did you say you wanted to wash Daddy's car? And they'd say, no! And then, of course, eventually I'd give them the tennis ball because as a parent, kids have to learn to be quiet. And sometimes the only way to teach them that lesson is to give them what they're asking for. The same thing is true with God. At some level, we pray because we want to remind him what we want. Sometimes he's going to say, huh? Did you say you want to be a missionary? And we're going to be like, no, I want a convertible. But eventually, I believe that there is a point then where God is going to say, all right, whatever, D-Ray, here's the convertible. Just shut up. What I'm not saying here is I'm not saying that prayer is like magic. It's not like, you say abracadabra or, Ronnie, what's the name of that? The Count on Sesame Street, what's he say? Peanut butter sandwiches or whatever. When we talk about prayer, we're not saying, well, you just say some of these words and then stuff's going to happen over here. What it is that you pray verbally things and then over here other stuff happens. Like, for instance, when I go to the mall, one thing I use prayer for on a regular basis is to get a spot up close. And it's amazing. I'll say a little prayer. Now, not while I'm driving. That's always a bad idea. I'll stop in a fire zone or sometimes in a handicapped spot and I'll pray. And then pretty soon what happens? I drive around for a while. Sometimes it takes half an hour, 40 minutes. Then somebody will pull out close up to the mall and I pull right in. It's prayer combined with patience, And in some ways, I guess you could say, it is a little bit like magic. We don't believe in magic, but we do believe in saying some words and then stuff happens, which is, if that makes it make more sense to you, if it's easier for you to comprehend, then think of prayer as the equivalent of Christian magic. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You say some stuff and some other stuff, you get a better parking spot. And the last thing I was going to say too is we see very clearly in the Old Testament that God, in the olden times, used to talk to people. Sometimes he did that through a big thing of smoke, some foliage that was on fire. Sometimes he talked through a donkey. But in our day and age, He's not initiating conversation. It seems to me that one of the reasons why we pray is that if we don't pray, well, there'll be no communication between us and God at all. I can remember girls when I was in high school I severely wanted to talk to. They would have made great life partners. And I'd see these girls from a distance, with their cheering for the football game. And I think to myself, I really wish that girl would talk to me. But you know what? Wishing isn't going to make it happen. If we were going to have a conversation, I recognized that I was going to have to be the one to start it. And so I'd go up to these young ladies and say, hey there, my name's D-Ray. It's nice to meet you. And that was some fancy jumping thing you did there. Or I like the way you yell and clap at the crowd. It's good. And then at least there was some conversation. Now, they never spoke back to me. You know, I'd talk and talk to them, and they would keep walking away. One time, I had a girl's brother who hit me in the stomach. But you know, the thing is, one side of a conversation is infinitely better than no conversation at all. Am I right? That's the way it is with us and God as well. We pray because even a one-sided conversation is better than no conversation at all. If you don't understand my answers or responses, what you need to do at this point is rewind the video and hit play again, I think. Thanks very much. We'll see y'all next time.